So, welcome, Fran. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, Rob. Brilliant. It's so nice to see you. We've come back into contact, haven't we? Which is really, really nice.
Yeah, after a long time. I was thinking just before we came online, when was the last time I actually was in the same place as you? And I
Quite a
think I've come up
while.
with an answer.
Yeah, quite a while. But I find with we went through sport, and I find that those relationships, as with all great relationships, it doesn't, you might not see each other face to face, but you've had so much shared experience that you feel like you can kind of check in pretty quickly and catch up, and you share a language, don't you? As well as past experience, you share a language to kind of describe now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think it was in about 2006 or 2007 in the kitchen of UL, University
All
of London.
right, that's a place. So UL is our University of London boathouse, and there was a kitchen there, but unfortunately for me, quite often it didn't have much food in it. 'Cause I do remember I was frequently found trying to opening every cupboard door. Surely someone's left something in here somewhere that I can eat.
If you looked at the bottom of the chest freezer, there was a stash of frozen cheese sandwiches. And I would go
Right
in there
now,
if I couldn't find anything else. I would go in and find one of those and defrost it. That's how bad it got
if
sometimes.
only I knew that. If only I knew that then.
But I mentioned that because I came to you with for some advice back then. I was really burnt out. I was trying to be a teacher and a full-time rower, and I was really struggling. I came to UL with my kit bag, ready to train, and I just looked at the gym door, walked past it, was looking for somebody, and I happened to bump into you in the kitchen. And I explained my predicament that I just didn't feel like training today. And I'm glad I found you because um, you had a very calm presence and you listened to what I said and asked me a few questions. And I think it was just what I needed because I came up with an answer that I was going to just have a day off. And I think you did say, come back when you know you're ready,
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't. I didn't come back. And I want to thank you for helping me find some time to make that decision. I went on to go and become a full-time teacher, but it was really helpful to have met you at that particular moment. So I have never said thank you, so I'm saying thank you now. So thank you very much.
Not at all. Well, I'm glad it was a useful encounter. I also got some many words of wisdom in that in that kitchen as well. It's obviously a source of great moments, that place. But yeah, it's to be given permission from someone else who can see you from the outside just to take a moment can often be extremely valuable.
Couldn't agree more. And I think we will come on to that. We're going to discuss your purpose today in different parts of your life, and um, we're going to talk about you as a mentor, an area that you're moving into now or have moved in already, but that
Mm.
is a place for you to stretch out in front of you and to own. But today, first of all, I want to talk about your rowing career, and I want to thank you for writing this. It's my copy of Fran's book, Learnings from 5 Olympic Games. Um, I love this book. I've also got my notebook here. So as soon as I read it again. I had COVID at the time, and I wanted just to occupy myself and do some learning. So these are all the notes that I wrote from Fran's book, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to learn from a 5-time Olympian, a 4-time world champion, um, and 3-time Olympic silver medalist. All the stats here on the back as well. What was your first Olympics? Was it Sydney?
Yeah, so Sydney 2000, and then
Yes.
Athens, Beijing, London, Rio. Yeah, it's really great to see the notes that you've made because I really wanted to make sure that I produced something succinct so that it's accessible. I don't know what anyone else is like, but I find it really hard. I contemplate, there's so much I want to read, but I can't read that many words. So I was really keen to make sure I produced something that was accessible. But in doing so, I understand that it's pretty intense and it's compact what I've written. I've distilled my learnings, sort of cherry pick the things that I think are most meaningful for other people, hopefully. But I realize that for when on the receiving end, that involves a little bit of unpacking and reflection. So it's brilliant to see that you've gone through that process yourself and found it accessible enough just to kind of turn back to the beginning and give it a go again.
It didn't take much unpacking, if I'm honest, and I mean that as a compliment. It's it just seemed to dance around your career in just the right way for me. It wasn't completely sequential. There was things that where you flitted to and fro, and I also it's really nice in the hand. By the way, it's just lovely text, combination of pictures, and I'll show you a few pictures, everyone. It's not a heavy read, obviously. It's but I think there's a couple of things that I've been talking about with my clients and with friends as well. A couple of the main things I've taken away from the book. One of them is the ruthless simplicity, and the other is why is this going to be the reason that we win? And I think that was referring to tough times, or maybe a race that hasn't gone that well, or a sticky situation. Why is this going to be a reason why we win in the future? What role has ruthless simplicity played in the production of this book then?
Oh wow, gosh, he was probably the bedrock of it. So early on in my career, we kind of figured out that in groups of people it was really useful to have an identity, something that we could say this defines us. And in one of our teams we said, right, we're gonna our characteristic is going to be ruthless simplicity. We're going to be ruthless, but we're also going to keep things simple. And when we're as in any walk of life, if you're trying to make progress, you need to cherry pick what you're going to make progress on, because you could try and get better at absolutely everything you do. So what we said, we're going to be really, really ruthless about keeping it simple. And that really worked for us. That was actually the first crew in which I won a world championship. So I was like, there's something in this, keeping things simple. But it is tricky to be ruthless about stuff, because by its very nature, it means that you leave a lot of stuff behind. But actually, by doing that and eliminating stuff that you choose not to focus on, you are serving both yourself, in terms of your brain can feel a bit cleaner and be focused, and you get the satisfaction of actually making progress. You're serving other people, because you're in a better place. You're united on clear goals, clear focuses, and you're also serving the task. You've identified the task. In our case, it was being the best in the world, and to do that, we couldn't be good at everything, but we could be really good at a couple of things that were significant enough to make us good enough to win. So yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you referring to is it the 99, the double scull world championship?
No, that was actually 2005, I think, the first time. Yeah, 2005 in a crew of 4. No British crew had ever won the world championships in a crew of 4 at that point, in that event. And what I imagine comes across quite clearly in the book is I am a bit of a thinker. So
a little bit of a thinker.
Bit of a thinker. So I'm a real fan of the power of simplicity. And as I kind of referred to before, it really felt like I'd learned a lot over the 21 years I'd spent on the team. And the tempting thing could be to download all of it and just reels and reels of thought and just a brain dump. But when you ask what power did Ruthless Simplicity play in the book, I'd seen the power of simplicity, and I thought, if I can it took me 4 years from retiring on the podium in Rio in 2016, knowing that I wanted to produce something from my career. It took me 4 years really of cleaning up these learnings to a point that it could be presented in a way that you see in the book. Because although lots of long rambling thoughts can keep ourselves company and maybe a few close friends, in order for it to be useful, that's why I wanted the book to be a succinct distillation of those 21 years of learnings. And actually, this was only supposed to be the first download, so that I could, do a kind of bigger tome separately. But this is like this is the cherry stuff. This is the, out of 21 teams I've been in, and having been the best in the world in some of them, what could I say is the common denominator? If you really push me, what really makes a team work? And I can say that has been through thick and thin, through good results, bad results, and really like be able to step back and say, actually, these are the common threads, and with that depth of experience.
Wow, so there's so much information there, and so I'm going to be ruthless, use ruthless simplicity. One thing you said about the sort of the rambling, conversational thoughts we have can keep us company. I love that, because there's something there around staying with comfort. That's comforting, isn't it? Like rambling on to ourselves sometimes can be comforting, but then it might not be serving the ultimate goal, world champion, Olympic Games, the agenda of you and your crewmates. Focusing on the Rio crew, if one of your defining characteristics was ruthless simplicity, what were you not good at as a crew?
Well, that's a great question. So just to give a bit of context, my Rio crew was a crew of 9. Have to never forget the person that sits at the front. No, you didn't say you didn't say anything different. But
did I not? Okay, God, I wasn't listening to myself.
8 rowers, just for anyone who wasn't familiar with rowing, 8 rowers and one small person. And in this case, she's called Cox, and she was called Zoe, and she took great pride, and she said she was the most unfit person at the Olympic Games, which she thought was just brilliant. What were we not good at? I mean, loads and loads and loads of things. The thing that keeps coming to the front of my brain after that question is just that we were a mix of so many different characters. The stuff that we weren't good at, someone would fill in to either provide a strength in that area or say that, that weakness or that lack of skill, let's crowd that out with the stuff we are good at. Or, say, Fran, you're overthinking again, let's just dial you down and make sure we've got the relationship in which, and the honesty and freedom to be like, Fran, too much today. Like, you're coming down. Let's let other people step in. You're
human. You're human then.
Yeah, we're all very, very human. And I think, because we had such a texture of different levels of experience. I'd been to 5 games. I'd won Olympic medals before. But I wasn't at the top of my game at that point. I'd scraped into the crew. I was called Granny for good reason. We had girls or ladies, girls. I always called them girls. I get into trouble, but we called each other girls, so I think that's fine. Girls in the crew who had never been to an international regatta representing Great Britain at that level before.
Wow.
But to me, that that's brilliant to have that sight, because you have a fresh person in a team who says, "Hang on a minute, why are we doing it like this?" And provides fresh perspective on ourselves. Fantastic. Really, I think the thing that I worked probably hardest on providing was permission to believe. It was providing an assurance to those around me that it's okay to believe in themselves. A default, no crew of 8, no women's 8 for Great Britain ever won an Olympic medal before. They've been in positions to be able to, but they've never delivered in that moment under pressure. So if training wasn't going well, or it looked like other nations were going very fast, an instinctive response at that point, it's so ingrained that, this is, that proves it, we're just not good enough. But I knew that we were good enough. I knew that I knew at this point what it took to be good enough. I knew what it felt like. I knew the language. I knew the physical characteristics as well as the psychological characteristics. And if I could say to my teammates, it's okay, you absolutely can still believe, and what is inside you is enough, I think that was probably the biggest thing that I could contribute, and probably what was the stumbling block before. So you asked what we weren't good at. I think as a squad, there had been a repeated kind of fallback onto, it's true, we're not good enough. But actually, give you, an arrogance and belief are very different things. And if you can give people permission to believe in themselves, that's really, really powerful.
I couldn't agree more. I think that beliefs working, well, you've got a belief there working in two different directions, haven't you? The belief that, oh, we're not quite good enough, but then the belief that we are. And it's, as you said, the younger person in the crew, the person who hasn't been to an international regatta in that crew, they maybe have the luxury of not having experiences which might generate a negative belief. And I love that everyone seems to be, I think I can imagine everyone, I mean, I know two other people in the crew. I know obviously Katie and Jess. So Katie was at Bow, you were at 3, Jess was at 5, is that correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I know you three, and I know you as individuals and what you bring to something. I think where someone's not great, as you described, like a jigsaw puzzle, where you've got an indentation in your piece, there's someone else that fits into that like a socket, and then together you're making this very visible, very clear image. I mean, you talk about clarity in your book as well, I think.
Well, actually, the image you just described is very similar to the image I draw in the book about vulnerability, and I describe it like a zip. We have strengths and we have weaknesses.
Oh, yeah.
And if I have a weakness, someone can come in and fill that. And actually, by admitting or being open about our vulnerabilities, I think in some contexts, in some teams that aren't quite functioning as well as we would want them to, we might feel that admitting or being very honest and open about a vulnerability will make me weaker, but actually to be able to share that so that someone else can fit in makes us stronger.
Right. Okay.
That's, that zip image is something that I really used, and I found very powerful. It actually came after someone came to me, and I was in a bad patch at the time. I was burnt out. I was injured. And I said, oh, I'm probably not going to be able to, make the team again. And she said, oh, but you're always in such a good place. And I said, no, I'm not always in such a good place. Like, I might look like it, but, I struggle as much as anyone else. And she said, oh, but I just never realized you always seem like the indestructible pillar. And then I realized that actually, if I don't share with people where I really am, they'll never know to come and reach out and come and fit in and lift me up. So that there's sort of two elements. It'll make us stronger if we function as a zip, and being open and honest can actually be really, really powerful for ourselves in those moments as well.
So that's a way of granting permission for somebody else to come in and be the other part of the zip for you to, if you're vulnerable and I mean, that indestructible pillar that's quite a powerful image, isn't it? That's how someone sees you.
Yeah.
So in these interviews, I like to let my interviewee let you know how I see you. But this is in the same vein. So someone sees you, approaching the boat, someone in your crew as the indestructible pillar. What's that like to know that you were viewed in that way?
I guess in some ways it's reassuring to know that you can fulfill a persona, no matter where you are on a given day. That can be useful because, I definitely aren't the same every day, and I'm not, my best self every day. So if there's something that is an image that I know that I can at least pretend to be at times, that can be handy. That can help ourselves put ourselves up for a period of time. It doesn't solve stuff, but it can be useful. It can also be frustrating, what it's like when you're absolutely knackered and then you go and see someone and they say, oh, you look great. And you're like, no, I don't feel great. I feel awful. Can't we have a chat about how awful I feel? So if you feel misunderstood, that can really be a blocker. And that sort of brings me to one of the things that I find incredibly powerful is that to feel understood is, I find, really, really important. And I've only come to understand this now that I'm outside of sport, but I've moved to a different area of the country, a very different context. I don't operate in the same world I used to. And I spent a long time trying to understand the new world. And someone pointed out to me, it'll take time for you to adapt, but remember how important it is for you to feel understood as well as for you to understand other people. So that slightly different perspective on things really I guess it helped me understand what I was trying to like figure out or portray to other people. So that brings us back to, people see me as an indestructible pillar, and I don't either correct that or kind of paint a bigger, a richer picture than that of what people see of me. Then I'm not making steps towards feeling understood by other people. You have to give people information and fill in some color about yourself for them to understand you and to therefore then feel understood by them.
So it must be a lot of comfort, I'm assuming, with a crew of 9 sitting on the start line, all feeling understood by each other.
Yeah, I think in this particular crew, we're referring to the crew of Rio.
Yeah.
We sat in a room, about 6 months before the games itself, and our coach, there he said, look, one of the biggest things that's going to make the difference between delivering what you're capable of and coming off the water and having not reached that final mark again is the trust that you can build between each other that will withstand the pressure that you will feel in the 24 hours before, the hour before, and in that moment. So a lot of the work that we do, the training happens anyway. I mean, anyone that's involved in elite sport knows that there's a lot of training. It's, you complete the tasks of the practical training that you do, and it's been set to you by people that know about what the right thing to do is. But really, the real work that went on was getting to know each other, using those really difficult moments in training, or when people were really tired, or when we came up against particular challenges, and seeing how people responded when people were having tough times outside the boat or in the boat, supporting each other to understand each other, so that this layers and layers and layers and layers of trust built up. So there were so many layers that when it came to that really squeaky pants time of the 24 hours before, or you're at 1,000 meters, your potential is realistically to be winning an Olympic silver medal, but you're coming last. to have a relationship and that trust that you still trust each other, you still trust the plan that you've made together for that moment. That's really what it came down to, and it came down actually between silver and bronze to about this much. It was a photo finish, and I absolutely believe that difference was the trust that we had in each other in the moment of greatest pressure.
That makes my skin sort of, I got shivers thinking about that and watching that that race. I think in your book you mentioned trust, you mentioned belief, you mentioned honesty, all things which I think come under that banner of understanding or being understood, or understanding somebody else. So you sound like you're a known quantity to each other, to yourselves. You've been open, you've been honest, you've maybe in some way called into question that indestructible pillar and shown that there are some vulnerabilities, and then that allows your crew to like we say, like the jigsaw, you use that image in your book, just to mesh together, or the zip. I love the idea of the zip as well, because when you do come together, then of course the zip goes up. You climb higher, and you're becoming something greater than some of your parts. When you said, I think you were injured, is this 2009 when you may not have?
So 2014 was when I burnt out a few times, but the big burnout was 2014,
right?
Which was when I really changed I changed my mindset. Before that, it was all about winning. Is this the one that you're thinking of? And I redefined what success meant to me.
So I think I've got two in my head mixed up, because I know that I think it was at 2009 you went to the cookery school in Ballymaloo,
Ireland, near Cork.
Yeah, and I wondered if that was, because I'm interested in the relationship between. I know we both know that when you come together as a crew, you've got a very specific job to do, even just one outing. So you're going to put things on hold whilst you get that done. As you acknowledged, and I know we're all human, so you're going to arrive to that situation with all kinds of things going on in your life, but it gets put on hold whilst you do a particular job. And I'm interested in that relationship and what was going on outside, and how that influenced your ability to be the crewmate you wanted to be, which is why I mentioned Ballymaloe, and but now you've also mentioned 2014. So could you
Yeah.
tell us a bit about what was your purpose outside of the boat, and how did that relate to your purpose in the boat?
Yeah, so one of the drivers behind going over to Ireland and sort of immersing myself in a cookery school in 2009 was because I really wanted to make sure I had an identity, and that, I mean, identity is like a simple word, isn't it? But people would only really talk to me about rowing. I didn't really see myself as a rower. Like I did some rowing in my day, but I'm a person and I've got loads of interests and lots of stuff I enjoy talking about and lots of things I enjoy doing. And really, I wanted to build a much richer identity of what people saw from the outside, as well as, scratch some itches of things, something that I was really interested in and really enjoyed doing, whilst I had the opportunity to do that. So in 2008 at the Olympic Games, we hadn't delivered on, we were favourites to win gold and we won silver. And I knew that this would require, a definite period of reflection and time out just to work through, to understand, to reconcile with, and know whether I wanted to, go for another, Olympiad, see what I wanted to do next, and just really acknowledge what a big push it had been to get to that point. So going to cookery school was, I guess I wanted to switch off and be away from the elite sport environment, and to build something a bit richer about myself. And what was really interesting was that I found that when the pressure came on in the kitchen, I responded in exactly the same way as I do when pressure comes on in sport. So I moved into myself, I become very quiet. So then I had this like very simple realization: oh, it's not rowing that does this to me. This is me and my personality. So this is something that I need to work on myself rather than blame everyone else and try and change, reality. So
I love that you're a person. You're not just a rower. It's just one facet of you, and you can find that common denominator in terms of that kind of behaviour. That you become quiet. You turn into just inward. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is that a superpower, and how is it not?
But turning inward.
Yep.
Well, I think if you can solve some stuff by pressing pause rather than staying in the washing machine, that can be quite helpful. If you can extract yourself, so say before a big race, not in 2016 so much, but in previous crews, one of my jobs was to build the race plan, to decide what calls we were going to have, down the race. The race is 2,000 meters long. It's about 6.5 minutes. And rowing is flat out from A to B, but you still have moments in that period where you want to make sure that every mind is focused on exactly the same thing at the same time, and really knowing what the right thing for each moment would be and knowing the right word to choose. That was, a very important part of racing. So that was my job. And I think the ability to extract oneself from a situation and feel like I never have fear of missing out. So maybe that's like a positive of being an introvert at times. So I think that can be, that when pressure comes on, that I'm in a comfortable place for me to extract myself and go inwards, is powerful. It's not helpful when, other people are, especially when you're in a team, other people are feeling stress as well. And human contact, I found, does reduce stress, the feeling of stress. So other people might need that interaction, want that interaction. And although I might have said, I really want to just shut the door and, not talk to anyone, I was always a better version of myself if I could dial that down a little bit and loosen off those shackles and, learn to just talk a bit more, to interact a bit more, because then I would be a less uptight version of me. So, helpful in some ways, but actually not helpful to shut oneself off, because there are really helpful things in the outside environment that would really actually prepare me and deliver me in a better space for a free performance, as opposed to a performance that I tried to make perfect.
Yeah. So then the understanding, the knowledge of opening yourself up, which sounds like challenging, but you can see the rewards that you get from that.
Mm.
Where was that skill learnt from? And where was the skill of turning inward learnt from, do you think, in your life?
Gosh, okay. Turning inward, I've had that from such a young age. So that wasn't a learned behavior, that was an instinctive response to environment. Although I did learn that, so I spent lockdown with my mother. I realized that my home environment is very quiet, and my home, as in my childhood home, my upbringing, very quiet, very still. And I, if that's what I was adapted to, that's clearly where I would seek safety when things feel like they're moving too fast in normal life. What was the second half of the question?
And where did your home environment when you're younger could be the breeding ground for that introverted nature, and then
where did I learn
to open up and to make yourself accessible, even when you were thinking, I could turn inward here, but you made a choice to actually find people. And
so we've referred a little bit to the sort of second time I burnt out in 2014. And this is where I really, really had a deep and strong and prolonged period of reflection, really assessed myself, my goals, my mindset around what I was doing. And what I realized was that pursuing my goal of winning in the way that I was pursuing it, when it was, I wanted to win the gold medal. It was about that. That was what success would be. But it wasn't working. Like, I wasn't going faster. I didn't have good relationships with my teammates. We were all kind of stressed because nothing was good enough. Nothing was fast enough. And I realized, doing it like this wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving my goal, and it wasn't serving other people. It just wasn't working. So this was when I realized that, I had to do things differently. And one of the things was I looked back over all my past performances, good and not so good. And I realized the common denominator in the ones that I really valued, and that could have been like, not winning a medal, but I really still valued, was the relationship I had with those people that I was sort of set to task with, and what we created. We created something together. We were in it together. We understood each other. It was like a project, it was something that we were constantly progressing on, and we shared, even in a low moment, really, really shared that moment. That's what I really valued. And so I thought, well, that's what I want more of. I've got at maximum 2 years left of this career, of being able to basically do my favorite sport all day, every day. So what do I want more out of it? What would be the most that I could get out of 2 years left? And I thought, well, if I could have more of those relationships, that it would be such a waste if I didn't use it for that. And of course, having realized that, and actually behaving like that, and being around people and engaging with people more, because I realized how much I valued it, I could see that actually other people were then far more relaxed. The boat started going faster because we were freer. We were giving each other permission to be ourselves. And I have a real belief that we're all our most powerful as our most uninhibited selves. So if you can let the people around you, in an athlete sense, really express themselves, rather than trying to reproduce what you think a champion would do, but saying, look, you can be yourself and express yourself fully. Like, we'll fit this jigsaw together, and your full most powerful self is going to be slightly different to my full powerful self. But if we can all be our most powerful, then this is the best that we can knit together out of this group of people. And people we were just going faster and faster and faster. I was enjoying it more. I knew that one of the most important things to me was that if I was part of a crew and I had the opportunity to go to another Olympic Games, I wanted my crewmates to really enjoy that experience. I had crossed Olympic finish lines and felt really relieved it was over. I just really wanted to leave the venue, go somewhere else. That is such a waste. It's so hard to get to become an Olympian and to perform at that level. If I said to myself, if I ever have the opportunity to share that experience with anyone else, I want to ensure that they enjoy that experience. So this was a real motivating factor. And it was all about how I wanted to feel doing it. And in turn, this led me to be able to completely redefine what I thought success would be. So before this burnout, I wanted to win Olympic gold. during this burnout, I said, right, the absolute ultimate I could possibly do, my dream, my goal for Rio 2016, if I get there, would be to be able to stand on an Olympic podium with my arms around my teammates, share that moment, and that be a moment of joy, not relief it's over, but joy at what we've created together. So it's this real shift, and and just being able to see as change the way that I behaved, because I changed my mindset. I'd reconnected with what I understood then, what I actually really valued. I'd let go of winning. I'd said to myself, it's okay if you don't win. It's okay if you don't even get to another games again. And in doing that, it unlocked myself. I was a lot freer, I was a lot calmer, and then therefore how people felt around me was very different. And people were a lot freer. I describe it like a hose pipe. And you're in the garden when the hose pipe gets like all twisted and none of the water can go through, and then it works itself out, and then water can just flow completely freely. You just don't know where you might end up.
I love that, and it's such I think we can all, well, most people who've been in the garden can associate with that way of summing it up. Well, there's a lot going on there. I've been kind of scribbling down notes because I'm on this quest to offer you my interpretation of your purpose. Page of notes. So there's something around you being this sort of distilled gem of experience, and your 20-odd year journey in professional rowing has been that distillation process where you've held on to some things, some ways of doing things, it's worked, you've let go of others, and the kind of crescendo of going to Rio in 2016 and finding that freedom. And I don't know if you've heard this, but the term free speed in a boat. Yeah, so coaches said that to me before. You're trying to find that free speed, which you can strangle out of your own performance. Like that knotted hose you mentioned. When you're trying, but it's just the wrong tool for the job, whichever way you're trying. And I can see that that sort of release of pressure, that freedom of maybe letting go of something, and the thing maybe that you let go of may have been the introverted approach, and you've opened yourself out to your crewmates. You can gel as those jigsaw pieces. You can do yourself up as that one unifying zip, and then off you go. And as you said, you just got faster and faster and faster, and you that much won the silver medal. Okay. So yeah, you are so with the purpose. It's about a metaphor and an impact that you have. So I'm saying that you're the distilled gem of experience, and the impact you have is it's about allowing people to find the free speed within their own identity.
Yeah.
So you're this distilled gem of experience who allows people to find the free speed in their own identity.
Although most people that know me would laugh at the word speed being used in any association with me whatsoever.
Are you referring to a running career?
Well, my running career, yes, that's pretty slow. Yeah. Yes. I'm slow moving.
What do you think about it? Do you think does this resonate with you at all, being the distilled gem of experience? It kind of a concentrate, like in terms of your book, you talked about the Ruthless Simplicity. It took you, the distilled is the term you used, the 4 years to get down to this. So the things that work have stayed or are more accessible. That's why I'm describing you as that distilled, and that you're a gem, Fran, because A, who you are as a person, B, because of who you have allowed others to be as well. This doesn't happen by accident. This happens with a lot of considered and just you're very tenacious, obviously, a lot of sustained, continued effort to do what you love at such a high level. You are always experiences are sticking to you. You're like a nucleus moving through life. So I can see how someone might see you as that indestructible pillar, because they're just seeing someone 4 Olympics. Let's say if someone hasn't been to Rio with you just yet, you're arriving with 4 Olympics under your belt, 4-time world champion, 2 Olympic silver medals already. You're just dripping in experience.
Mm.
And then the little bit of the zip which you are, rather than just saying I'm experienced and here's what I got to offer, you took a less obvious route and basically, I want to know more about you. I want to understand my teammates. And then you allow them to find their own freedom amongst all of that. And I think that's where I can see your speed as a crew coming from, that undoing the hose, allowing it to flow with all these different identities just meshing so well together.
Well, I think, it's how you describe it reminds me actually of the correlation between being a part of that crew and coaching, in that, yes, I've been a part of great crews before, broken world records. I knew what they felt like. But for us to go fast, we needed to be able to describe ourselves with our own language. So we needed to experience it, what it felt like to go fast, and every moment that was good, to then know our language to describe it. And that's a lot of how I see coaching and mentoring being, the ability to describe things for ourselves and learning our own language. It's not, until we've felt it and can describe it ourselves, what the right, the thing that rings right, when we can articulate that ourselves, and only we can hit that nail, I think, truly, because we know our full context. But we have to be able to experience it, feel it, to then describe it, to be able to keep doing it. And as a coach or as a mentor, the athletes that I mentor now, I want to give them the opportunity to be able to describe things for themselves, because that's when they can describe it themselves, that's when they're like, oh right, okay, that's what I need to do, or that's what I want to do, or now it makes sense, because it makes sense in their mind. So yeah, anyway, that's what that made me think about. That's what that reminded me of, correlations.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. So then again, these are just my words, but if you're seeing you as that distilled gem of experience, then you help people find their own language of self. Maybe you find they're finding the answers in a very local place, but you are providing that kind of space, or you mesh with their life in a way that allows them to do that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about your role as a mentor in a short while, but you were already doing it as well. Maybe this purpose that I'm offering is something that well, I'm going to take an educated guess, and having read something about your mentor work already, it sounds like that's what some of what you're offering. Wherever you go, there you are. We don't know the impact we have fully.
No.
And I think maybe if I got hold of either Katie or Jess or anyone else from the Rio crew, I said, if I describe Fran as the distilled gem of experience who allowed others to find the language of themselves, what would you say? What do you think they might say, Fran?
I think they probably agree with that.
All right.
Yeah, I mean they did. Yeah, I mean either that or the granny.
Or granny. Well.
Well, what granny isn't a distilled gem of experience?
Yeah.
In an ideal world, anyway.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. But we talked about we started with that ruthless simplicity and the role of that in that last crew, and what I kind of figured out by that point was that with 8 other people that we were working with and a coach, the more simple I could make what people saw as my role in that crew, the better. So yes, I had lots and lots of experience, and I could have scattergunned a whole load of feedback every single session. But what I decided to do, and you've mentioned a few of these already, but what I had worked out in my own mind as correlations over the best teams that I had been in, was that everyone wants to feel confident, but confidence can just disappear when you wake up on the morning of a race. Doesn't matter how well prepared you are, how fast you've been going and training, that feeling of confidence can just disappear. When I was really challenged myself on what it took for me to have a feeling of confidence, what it actually was a feeling of calm, a feeling of being prepared. And that confidence came from trust plus belief. So trust in the people I was with, trust in the preparation I'd done, and fundamental belief in myself. So that was the first thing. I felt like the crew, the team was waning in confidence or lacking in confidence. And I would almost say we're not allowed to talk, not even allowed to utter that word. The two things we need to check in on are, do we trust what we said we were going to do? Did we trust? Do we trust the plan? Do we trust each other? Do we still fundamentally believe in ourselves? Let's just check in on those two, and that the other thing will take care of itself. That's where our focus needs to be, on our trust and our belief. Yeah. That was the first thing. And the other thing you referred to was honesty. So it's basically in all my interactions in this team, I filtered through these two things. The confidence is trust plus belief thing, and then honesty. So what I'd seen from all the best teams I've been a part of was that once we reached a level of relationship between us where we could have honest conversations with each other, to be able to say, oh, that wasn't a great day, like what did we do wrong, what do we want to keep doing, what do we want to acknowledge, learn from, and just discard, throw over our shoulder, but be able to just say that, and Fran, like that wasn't your best day, like what do we need to do to sort of have a better day tomorrow, but without any judgment, without any defensiveness, any of that, but that being an absolutely open, positive, embraced conversation, to have that level of honesty, to be able to have that was the gateway of progress. And really, in a team, we wanted to make, we don't know how fast we could be. We don't know what the ultimate is. We don't know what perfect is. We can't even be perfect, but we can, that's the most we could do with this opportunity, is just get better and better and better and better every day. And honesty, I felt, was the gateway to that progress. The more honest we could be each day about, what do we keep? What do we want to move on? And then the next day, this is what we said we would focus on. So this is what we're going to get better on. And just day upon day upon day, be able to be honest enough with each other that we make progress, not perfection. So that was where that's the kind of the simplicity I wanted to bring, and I resolved to bring to the crew, because I could have brought a lot, and I could have brought lots of different things. But I knew, having been in the pressure situations, the Olympic situations on that start line, I really worked hard to distill what were the significant things for that moment. We've already talked about the importance of trust in that moment, and that, and obviously the level of relationship that was so important in those high pressure moments.
So trust and belief, that's confidence. The route to progress is via honesty. I've now got an image of you all kind of distilling as a crew. This is something you clearly facilitated. But so you can bring the real essence of each of you to the crew, and you all develop your own shape, if you like. If you imagine it in three shapes, so you might be a triangle, but that represents the distilled version of you. Like your book, this looks a certain way because it has been distilled over 4 years. And when you're recognizable as that distilled version of you, then it's maybe easier for everyone to tessellate together to become that crew, rather than trying to be everything or bring everything. That's the impression I'm getting, is that as a crew, bits fell away, but what remained was the most impactful versions of yourselves within that crew, and to a wider context in life as well. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. And I think that this distinct difference in this crew was that there were 9 of those different people, as opposed to before, I'd had this belief that this is what champions look like, this is what champions do, and this is how they behave. We all want to be as close to that, on tracing paper, as what a champion does, and physically what they can do, technically what they can do, how they operate. But I'd moved away from that to being okay, let's be 9 completely empowered, completely released, completely free, completely supporting of each other people, have faith that that can knit together. Of course, we need to make compromises. We're physically attached to each other. But that is going to be something like, we don't know how fast that can be. But if we try and constrain ourselves and try and imitate something, I think I just found it very pressurizing. And I actually remember coming out of the elite sport environment and someone saying to me, we can't meet those standards every day. Like, you've got these such high standards. And if you impose really high standards on people and say, this is where we want to get to, it can just feel really demoralizing that you're not at that level yet. Whereas if you say, I don't know how good we can be, but this is how, this is how great you are, you can be, this is how you can be better tomorrow. There's no ceiling on it, but it just gets richer and richer and richer.
Oh, yeah, distilling. I mean, it's like, rather than, as you said, that kind of finite, definite goal, it's we'd love for you to distill. And knowing what that means as well, so having a common understanding of that.
And when you've got a distilled image of each person in a team, you know who to call on in any situation. Yes,
because they're more recognizable. If they're distilled, they're coming to focus. Oh wow! It was such a pleasure to see you win, because I haven't seen you for years, Fran. But you pop up on radar sometimes, and the rare moments where rowing was on TV. Oh yeah, brilliant! Watching that, and there's Fran, and there's other people. And I was aware that I was just having a glimpse of into your life, and this interview is adding so much to my understanding of you. We've kind of come up with that purpose, the distilled gem of experience, who, what did I say? Allows others to find the language of self, I think.
There was speed. There was speed in there.
Oh, the speed in there, the free speed. The free speed of the language of self. Ooh, yeah. Okay, right. Now I'd like to take the conversation. And by the way, sorry. So I'm thinking again through your book. We could talk about so many things to do with your career, but I'm going to be ruthlessly simple and say, right, let's move on. Let's move on to talk about your role as a mentor. And when did this start, do you think?
Well, so that's a good question. I was asked during my career by one of the coaches who oversees all the athletes who, with potential coming into the team. He said, Fran, would you help me? Could you mentor this young athlete? We think, she's got great potential, but she just needs a bit of guidance. And I remember just looking at him and just saying, I am absolutely exhausted. I mean, I can barely get through today. Like, there's no way I've got the brain space to help anyone else. And I felt really awful about that. I felt like, I am an older person on the team. I've got experience. There's a lot that I could pass on. There's a lot of ways in which I can support. There's no reason to see this person as any threat, and to see anyone else as a threat isn't helpful anyway. But this was actually just before I was sort of keeled over in burnout anyway. But kind of reflecting on that after I retired, it didn't sit well with me that I had not kind of stepped in there when I'd been asked to. So that was partly actually the motivation behind the book, but also when I had retired, I moved to Cornwall, but every time that I was up in the area where the British squad train, I said, look, why don't I add on an extra day? I'll come in and I'll be someone that the athletes can talk to. And it was, I found it, it was really a good way for me to maintain relationships. It was a good way for me to get to know people, and seeing athletes face to face, I always find really valuable. But I also knew it was very important that I trained as a mentor. So done my coaching and mentoring qualifications to ensure that I played the role in the way that was right. And really, it's developed from there. It's not about, initially I thought, I'm going to pass on my experience, but it's not about that. It's listening to others, just as coaching is, and I'm sure we all find it's listening helping someone feel understood, to be able to download their thoughts so they're outside of their head, and be able to offer them back, just like you have done today. But the unique thing that I hope that I can provide to the athletes in that environment is that I know what it feels like. I do know what it feels like to be in that training environment, to be living with the stress daily of whether you're going to be selected or not, to live with that fatigue, and to know what it feels like to sit on the start line and put yourself in a place where you're going to have to physically and emotionally push yourself beyond really what you want to. And I've been through plenty of ups and downs, and actually I think it's really the downs as well as the ups that the athletes can, they kind of not relate to, but it's a bit like that zip thing. I'm not like this multiple gold medal winning athlete that just it just happened, and it came easily. I clearly fought, and I clearly had to come back from just about every injury a rower can have. And so there's basically a topic of conversation that I can relate to across all circumstances. So yeah, it's having someone to talk to who gets it. And yes, I interpret through the prism of my own experiences, but hopefully, as we've said before, enable them to I can offer back so that they can speak in their own language and work out their pathway forward for themselves.
There's that word language again. So I've now got the image of that zip being made up of teeth of highs and lows and anything in between meshing together, and they're all needed to ascend to wherever you want to go. And that space that you're creating is that mental, is allowing someone to do their zip up. Doesn't sound like the best of terminology, but anyway, but yeah, it's creating something out of what has happened and what they want to happen, what they don't want to happen. And in your own book, you do say, why is this going to be the reason that we win? Can you just going back to the book, what was that in reference to, that particular phrase?
That particular phrase was in reference to being injured.
Right. Okay.
So what I did observe in the many champions that I was very fortunate to train alongside was that champions generally move quickest from judgment of a situation to action about it. And in the second half of my career, I did get injured quite a lot. My body was just starting to wear out as it does. And what I came to was that as soon as I got injured, I just, instead of welling in the, I don't want this to happen, and this isn't a great place to be in, and this is not putting me on a start line, to, okay, well, this is a different set of circumstances than I was expecting. Why is this going to be the reason I win? Because this is going to allow me to do a few different things. Maybe I'd hurt a rib, and it means that I trained on a bike for a couple of months. It means you increase your aerobic capacity. It might be that, in the instance of being burnt out, it wasn't a great situation. I was out for about 3 or 4 months, but the reflection I did in that time when I wasn't even able to go for a walk, that was completely powerful, and it turned my career around. And so it came from knowing that the quickest that I could move from judgment to action about it, and knowing that good things can come from unexpected circumstances, that as soon as I got injured then in the latter half of my career, I just thought, right, okay, why is this going to be the reason? What's this going to give me that I didn't expect?
So that distillation process just never stopped. It just happened in different ways. So distilling yourself as a person, you got injured, you were burnt out, so then you're distilling through the process of reflection. Or you injure your arm and you're on a bike, or injure your back and you're on a bike, and you are distilling through perfecting your CV capacity. But that distillation process never stops, by the sounds of it. Again, that quality of champions. Quickest from, what was it? Something into that quickest from.
Champions move quickest from judgment to action.
From judgment to action. Okay, right.
Yeah, I think it's because there's a lot of thoughts in my head, and so I find it incredibly powerful to be able to articulate things succinctly.
Yeah.
And once I can articulate a circumstance, a challenge, in a few words, then I'm away. I'm like, right, I get it now. Now I can move on. So I think that's probably, it's a bit like we're all a bit up. Well, I find I'm a bit upside down in terms of, the thing that I really valued from my sport was relationships, probably because I'm an introvert. I struggle to make relationships. So therefore, making really powerful relationships through sport was profoundly impactful for me, because I'm not someone that without sport would have, been incredibly social and had lots and lots of friendships. So it's all a bit of a, counterintuitive thing, I think. But the succinctness comes from, being a bit over having those and those thoughts and wanting to just clean it up.
Sorry, I lost in my own thoughts about what we talk about. Coming back to the mentoring then, clearly your rowing career has played a big role in distilling who you are today, which you're carrying through into your role as a mentor. And you were asked to be a mentor whilst you're still an active rower. 10 years from now, when there's a healthy stable of athletes that have moved through the Francis Houghton coaching experience, mentor experience, I've got a couple of questions. What would define them as a group? And secondly, why are you doing it?
Okay, what would define them as a group? I would say calmness. Calmness, because elite sport is really hard. And a complete acknowledgement that what they are doing is incredibly hard, but an absolute acceptance of that in a calm, coherent way. So, yes, I can cycle through my brain that this is going to be hard, that I'm challenged, there's going to be times I don't want to do it. But I'm an absolute, I'm comfortable with that. I accept that. And a calmness, almost like one of the, in a crew I was once in, it only happened once, but she used the word elan, which is a kind of like a very high level, it's like being in flow, basically. Okay. So flow is when you're stretched just slightly beyond what you were previously comfortable doing. So therefore you get this exhilaration, but also this calmness. So yeah, I think what would be brilliant is if that group was very calm in a high performing sense. And the second question was,
why are you doing it?
Why am I doing it? Because I think there are three phases in our lives. I think there's our formation, which we don't know much about.
Okay.
There's the experiences we have along the way. And there's the values and the impact we leave behind.
Okay.
And if I see my life through that prism, and it's not that that's probably going to sound wrong because I don't want to impact people, but I just feel like having had a myriad of experiences, it's wasteful for them, for any use of them, to stay just inside my head. And if I can serve others to enable them to have a positive experience in what they choose to do, then that's a positive contribution to the world that I leave behind. So mainly because it would be a waste not to. And the beauty of mentoring and coaching is that if it doesn't suit a mentor or a mentee, there's no need to further engage. But if it is helpful and it does serve them, then hopefully it's enriching for both parties as well, and it's long lasting.
I couldn't agree more with that last statement. And it's got to work for both. An athlete wants to work with a coach because that coach brings something, and then vice versa. There's got to be that. I use my knuckles when I describe the kind of coaching relationship I want to have. So that's not bad. That's ideal. And there's a lot that makes up that little click there. It can be just that you just genuinely get on. That might be enough. But I think when you do have that, I can see that the wish to not waste what's inside of you when you find you have a connection like that, and you can impart not only knowledge but also, when I talk to you, I said at the beginning of the interview, I said that we last saw each other in the kitchen of ULBC, boat club down the Tideway. It was definitely calming to talk to you. And you said that would be a defining characteristic of the stable of athletes that you will go on to mentor or are mentoring. I think it's so valuable to find that calm space in something that can be so frenetic, an environment that can be so buzzing and clicking and full of energy, and where you've got to switch yourself on and off, and like 3 sessions a day, those sorts of days when you have lots of them, or 1 day off every 3 weeks is, I remember that was my experience. It's there were good reasons why I was half asleep most of the time, much to the annoyance of my family. Wow. Okay. So and I love the idea of dividing life into your formation, your experiences, and then your values and your impact. Tell me about your values, because I on my page of writing here, I can clearly see what I can assume are values. But tell me what values are you talking about?
I really value honesty, the ability for me to be honest with myself, and sometimes that takes a while for me to really understand what's going on and be able to be honest with myself. To stay true to what we believe is right. I really believe in individuality as well. I really value for myself and for others to be themselves rather than feel they need to conform. I really feel that quite strongly. I really value perspective. I think, when we talk about the sort of the busyness of life, I know that when I have the opportunity to press pause or to expose myself to a very different environment, that can be really valuable. And have a fresh perspective on our own worlds, and that there's many different ways to live life. That's high on my values too.
Perspectives are interesting, aren't they? Because we can really like a perspective and take ownership over something without necessarily holding it up to the light and asking, like, is this the truth, or is it a truth? Or so I like perspectives too. I like being interested about looking at different directions and what does this look like from over there and over there.
And I think also sometimes it's really nice just to feel really small in a huge world and really insignificant.
Feel really small and huge. Yeah.
Maybe because I'm so tall. You won't be able to see. I'm 6'4", so I'm quite often the tallest woman anyone's ever seen. So I quite like being small and insignificant.
You carry yourself so well though, Fran. Like you might be the tallest woman that someone's ever seen. I love your stature. I love how you carry yourself. I remember when you did some boat naming at ULBC. We had all the boats at the front, and you that yourself and probably Tim and maybe Rusty. I'm not sure who had boats named after them. I know you did. And I just remember standing there listening to you make your speech with the bottle of champagne in your hand, and I just thought you carried yourself so well. Because sometimes people look of a certain stature, a certain height, don't. Came across as very, very confident, very comfortable, very calm.
Yeah, I learned to do that early on, actually. Like because I was very, very tall, very young. So it wasn't, it was a constant growth spurt as opposed to a sudden thing.
Okay.
And for a bit I was like, I wanted to make myself smaller, and then I just needed to embrace it. And maybe it was also because I got into sport. I got into rowing in particular at quite a young age for rowers. And so, as a woman especially, and so I was generally hanging around with people who were quite a bit older than me, and hence taller. So I was amongst people of a similar stature, and I think I just embrace it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's when when a bunch of rowers walk into a room,
Yeah.
everyone's like, who are they?
Yeah.
um, who would you say? I love the term role model. I like to help people find a version of an inner role model. And as you said before, you can look inward for answers sometimes. What about external role models in your life? If I were to ask you to distill your thoughts and use some ruthless simplicity, um, who who's standing there as a clear role model in your life, or role models? You can have as many as you want, but yeah.
I actually find this really difficult because I think I take characteristics or sort of moments from different people. If I had a role model for simplicity, it would be Michael Johnson. I don't know if anyone else generally watches the Olympics just to see the bits where Michael Johnson is talking and don't pay as much attention to the actual sport. Just I find the way that he speaks is, he's so articulate. I love that. So here's a role model. I think I'm probably not going to be able to provide you a satisfactory answer because I pick little bits from different people, and it might be, we've already referred to one of the coaches that I think we both worked with, a guy called Rusty, and he's just got an amazing family, unit, incredibly supportive. He celebrates family life, and that's something that I really admire and look up to and really enjoy being a part of. So it can be something like that as much as meeting Tim Foster, an Olympic champion, in the same kitchen that we had our conversation in, and him imparting some words that had a massive impact in my career. And so it's little bits from different people. Probably why I listen to Desert Island Discs quite a lot, because I think these people have such up and down lives, and it really goes to show that it's not a straight line. And to hear people reflect on their lives is really, really powerful.
Because you you have a background in, well, I'm not sure it's the correct term, cooking or baking, or
no, so it's a cookery school. It's just I wouldn't describe myself as a chef because that's hardcore.
Okay, so but it's I don't have one role model either. So I share the idea of taking experiences or something that someone does really well and putting that, and I'm going to say put it into like a cake mix, of your life. So maybe this is a form of you distilling experiences you have with people, with role models, with people that have trained you or that you've trained or rode with. I think we're surrounded by role models. You can witness a complete stranger in the distance do something well. And so you mentioned the men's German 8 in your book.
Yeah.
So were they role models?
In the way that, I don't know them as people. I've never spoken to them, don't speak any German, but the way that they behaved on the water, just the way they executed their task was something that I wanted to emulate.
And was it about the latter stages of a race? You were trying to emulate them in the latter stages of a race?
Completely. So they did the last bit, the kind of build into the line with this like complete smoothness and looseness. Like, sometimes I find if you can, a bit like you've just said, you see someone in the distance, if you can have an image in our mind of something to recreate or to emulate, it's really, really powerful. And there's no need to try and describe it in words. You can just see it in your head. You're like, I know exactly what I need to do.
And when you said in your book about the ruthless simplicity, so the task at hand in a particular outing, it was so simply defined that anyone who would jump into that boat would understand it in sort of 20 seconds and go, got it, right? Yeah.
It was always a real test, like of whether the team was functioning well. Could we describe what we were doing really succinctly, like in one sentence, so that if someone came in, that was the test. Someone coming in can't, because if you can't really describe, or it takes a lot of explanation, like our brains just, my brain definitely can't operate with too much complexity. So if I'm going out, I'm working on a project, I've got a task today, it's got to be clear in my head for me to be able to execute that task really as I want to.
So what's the clear, simple task that you have got lined up to do with your mentoring business that you're going to do next?
I'm going to do next. Oh, that's good. My next steps are growing. I've got pretty good engagement in the international, the Olympic setup, and now I'd like to engage more, on the club, the national level, as well as the elite level in other nations. So I'm starting conversations with US colleges and the international teams around the world, and seeing where that goes.
And they have bought your book, haven't they?
They have. Quite a few of the federations.
Australia.
New Zealand Federation, the Australian rowing team, parts of the US team, the junior team have. All over the world. I think one day I received, because I run all of this myself, tiny little cottage business, self sort of publish, print with a guy just down the road. I had an order from someone in the Orkneys and someone on Bondi Beach. I thought, well,
okay, that's far cool.
Yeah.
The Orkneys and Bondi. I was going to ask you, where would you love to hear that your book, had arrived?
I had someone order it from Mauritius, and he followed up with an email, and he said, if you ever want to come on a walking holiday in Mauritius, then let me know. And I said, I'm letting you know right now. I'm in.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I really do hope that more and more people get their hands on your book, because it's not about rowing. It's about it's about something much greater. The distillation of some really important life lessons that are, because of the Ruthless Simplicity, they're so easy to absorb and therefore use. I think that what you've got in here can be adopted as a skill set by anybody. They can go out and try these things, but you can only do that when those are accessible. So you've made what's in your head and in your own history, your own lifeline, accessible, which I think is really, really good. It's other people are going to flourish by having access to not only your book, but access to this very impactful, simple, ruthlessly simple list of learnings from 5 Olympic Games.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Rob. Thanks. And I'm sure you will mention it, but just to say that it's actually only available through my own website, which is www.francishoughton.co.uk.
Yes, and that is listed in just behind in the author's notes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, at the back.
I'll put all details in the description below this interview. But I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining me here on the coaching channel. I love having interesting conversations with interested and interesting individuals, and you definitely fall into that category. So, coming back to your purpose.
Right, yeah.
Right, okay, where did we get to? I got to the distilled gem of experience, who allows people to find the free speed in the language of themselves. A bit clunky, but
I know what you're describing.
This needs to be distilled, and just like your book, I'm sure you can get it down, because we could spend another sort of 10, 20, an hour discussing this. But the distilled gem of experience, who allows people to find the free speed in the identity of self, or the language of self, something along those lines. So I invite you to try it on for size.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes people write it out. So when they tell other people about it, and in the process of telling someone else about it, they go, "Oh no, maybe it's this," and it evolves. So my purpose is, I am the shepherd bear, and I help people catch their fish. And that's got a lot shorter than I can't remember what it was first of all, but I know exactly what it means to me, and that's what it's important that it means something to you, Fran. But
it does.
It is the observation from somebody, witnessing you. I feel that could be your purpose.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's so valuable to have observation from the outside, from someone who gets you. and I know that's partly what coaching is, but this has been a fantastic opportunity. Thank you for letting me contribute. And yeah, I'm going to write that down. And yeah, I'm gonna sift it a little bit, but I really like it. So thank you very much. Thank you for your observation.
Thank you for your time and your energy. It's been an absolute pleasure.